So from lions in the Masai Mara to lions in the Kruger National Park, welcome everybody to the Derby Sands in South Africa. We've been sitting with these lovely lions. It's nice and hot, 34 degrees centigrade, 93 degrees Fahrenheit. My name is Ralph Dec, and on the camera we have Wiem, who's wearing his shorts today because of the heat that we're having, and so are the lions. They're also feeling that heat. They're lying down, they're nice and relaxed, but you see that breathing theirs that is still very high. That's why they're lying up in the shade. They're taking it nice and easy, as everybody should be in this lovely heat that we're having. So I know that the lions were found this morning and they were followed a little bit. We just wanted to come and catch up with them, make sure that they're still in the same position, and it seems with the heat they're just going to be resting up for a good part of the rest of the day. So my plan is to start here. We're going to have a look at a couple of these lions. This is the Birmingham Boys, as you would mostly know, and I'm not sure on the individuals, their names and how to identify them, but we're going to have a good look at them. Try to see some identifying features, although they are flat out, so it is quite difficult. But this particular individual has got a very stout snout. He's very broad around the mouth, and there he's sticking his tongue out at us, so that's quite nice. Looks like he's having a bit of a bad dream. He was snoring a little bit earlier, and there he's snorting a bit as well. Yeah, looks a bit like me when I sleep, I think. But a fantastic little sighting here in the sun. And after we've sat with them for a little while, I don't think they're going to be moving at all for the next while. So we're going to head out a bit and see if we can pick up on some leopards and anything else special around. And we're going to try and come back here a little bit later towards the end of the show to see if they have started to move. Now, Dup asking the question, how old do you think this male lion is? Now, to answer that question, they generally come into their prime at around 4 or 5 years old, and a good life for a male lion is 12 to 13 years old, because they live quite a risky life. They do have to fight a lot with each other. So for these male lions here, I'm taking a wild guess at around 6 or 7 years. Their manes are well developed, and they obviously are quite dominant in the area. And thank you for that question. I also want to just add, please send through your questions at #SafariLive on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Throw us your questions, give us your comments. Let's make it as interactive as possible, and we'd love to get you in on the action. So that's my answer to that. I'm taking a educated guess at around 6 or 7 years old. So these males, with them being in a coalition as well, they would be very difficult to stop if you were a single male looking after a territory. So they would maintain any area, I would imagine, that they would move through. So as I've said, folks, the plan is going to stay like that. We're going to sit here a little bit longer, but in the meantime, let's cross over to Scott and see what he has been able to find. Conservation tactics there. We open up a road. We also need to assist in trying to stop the erosion. So let's move in here. These lions are still flat out, but we might be here just in time before they start moving. Now that one in front of us has moved a little bit out of the shade because it's nice and cool now, so we've hit it just at the right time, I believe. Folks, once again, please give us your questions and your comments while we sit here with these cats and hope that they stand up pretty soon. Now you can see a lovely view of that mane on this male lion, and He's quite a bit darker than the one that we were looking at earlier, but you see that lovely mane. That a lot to do with visual display between males, trying to make themselves look bigger, but also helping when they do fight with each other, mostly between males. It is also a lot of protection for that neck area, which is what they would be going for. Oh, the life of a sleeping lion. Not even moving, and the breathing is slowed down substantially from earlier, not breathing as fast as they were, so definitely feeling the effects now of the cooling environment. And they will be much more willing to be active, and they're not very fat, so they could be hungry. They look in perfect nick, but they're not absolutely fat like they would be if they've just fed, so it might be that time. So Peyton saying back to the B-boys, time for some epic viewing and maybe some roars. Absolutely, that's why I wanted to come back here, because with that sun setting, it is time for them to mark their territories and do a bit of a roar and possibly get a bit of a hunt. The only thing that might inhibit their hunting a little bit tonight is the fact that we have full moon, and it's heading towards full moon, supermoon tomorrow evening, 3rd of December. We might get a view of it just before sunset or before the end of the show. Ether asking the question, how old are these boys? Now, my educated guess is around 6 or 7 years old. And as I mentioned earlier, generally male lions will come into their prime around 4 or 5 years old, and they will stay in their prime for another 4 or 5 years. And generally, and we always say this, generally a good life of a male lion is around 12, 13 years, whereas females can live closer to 20, even maybe a little bit more. In captivity, they can live over 20 years. But males live a lot riskier lives. It's generally because of fighting with other males, especially in the wild like this. They'll have that 4 or 5 years in their prime and then generally start to lose condition, and new younger males will come into their area and fight them off. And then they will live a nomadic solitary life once more, as they did before they established a territory, and eventually die a lonely death. And the females stay in their prides, and they're not chased out. They're normally taken over by different males, but generally not chased away. It's not very often that you get solitary females, but it does happen, and it can be sometimes where the females have a little bit of squabbles and they chase one of the females out, and she can become solitary then and also form a sort of small coalition with either her cubs or some solitary males, and that's when they need to become a little bit ingenious, because they will then be solitary, but these are gregarious cats and they do well in teams. So much better if they stay in a group. But now that brings us to the fact, and it is well documented and well spoken about, and I'm sure you've all heard about it, but for those that haven't, that's the reason why we get the phenomenon called infanticide. Because male lions, they live for about 4 or 5 years, come into their prime at about that age, and they stay in their prime for about 4 or 5 years. So it's a very short window for them to pass their genes on. And when they've eventually take over a pride, and they fight for that, they chase away the dominant males, coalition or not, and they earn their stripes, they got that pride now. If there are females with young, they immediately kill them. And the reason for that is they've only got that 4 or 5 years, and if they don't kill those babies, it could take up to 2 years before those females will become receptive again. And in such time, that means that they've wasted half of their prime, and a lot of their genes would then not have been passed. So if they come in to a pride, kill those babies immediately, those females could be receptive within 2 months. So they are maximizing the opportunity to pass their genes through the females and into the babies. That's the real reason. They are not being spiteful. Jen asking the question, how dark can a male lion's mane become? Can it go completely black? Yes, Jen, it can, and it is very characteristic of the Kalahari and desert lions. They seem to have the gene or melanism coloration of the mane in the more arid regions of South Africa and moving into Botswana and Namibia. The Kalahari and Trans-Kalahari game reserves, all in that arid area, is very characteristic of black-maned lions. They are extremely beautiful, and it is particular of that area that we get naturally occurring lions like that. Now you see this lion on the right hand side here that we're going to look at. His mane is a lot darker around the chest there, and the Kalahari maned lions, they start to go that dark color in its entirety. So it is a spectacle to behold. You see those black maned lions, and you can often hear people talking about those Kalahari or black maned lions, very special in that coloration of theirs. And it's to do with melanism. Liz asking the question, will I be making a famous Marula jelly as well? Well, I know we do get the famous Marula cream. We get Marula lotions and potions. We get all sorts. I haven't heard of a Marula jelly, but I'm sure it is very tasty, and I would like to find out a little bit more about a Marula jelly. I know that we get Marula flavored juices now, even water flavored with Marula. It's very tasty, and if any of you have tasted Marula, I'm sure that you would vouch for that. And those that haven't, you should try one day. They're almost like apricots in their texture and taste. And I hear from Ryan in FC that Scott makes it, so I'm going to have to try some. We've got Scott in camp that is going to make some, so I'll report back once I've tasted it. Off in the distance here, we've got some Koran calling, the black-bellied Koran. He's doing the boop, boop. Right, so as we've been talking about the Marulas and the Marula jelly, let's cross over to Scott, who I think can give you a little bit more information on that. Thank you, Scott. And well, as you can see, folks, these lions haven't moved much, except for the odd arm or leg twitch or the tail flapping over, and just now one of them actually rolled over, which was terribly exciting. But you can see the sun is going down, and it is making for a wonderful setting here with these lions. A little bit of cloud around, so that always adds to those pink and golden hues, which makes it absolutely beautiful. And there's nothing more beautiful to me than an African sunset with a little bit of vegetation around, a little bit of clouds. Peter asking the question, are all 4 of them still here? Yes, they are. There's another 2 that are just off screen, just behind them, but we've got the clearest view of these 2, and it is very clear that if 2 of them or 1 of them moves, we'll generally be able to see the other ones follow suit. So we're just sitting with these 2, and there's a couple of other vehicles that have just moved in the area that are also watching the lions. So we're just staying with these 2 and watching the sun go down. There looks like a couple of magpie shrikes, long-tailed shrikes, magpie shrikes, old in the new name. Lovely looking birds with their call. Lovely long tails, as the name suggests. If I'm not mistaken, I'm looking into the silhouette. I do think it is those. Yeah, that is that. So, folks, just a reminder about the supermoon that I was talking about. The clouds, unfortunately, have just covered the moon behind us, but tomorrow evening is the first and last supermoon that we will be having this year. The other 2 times that it happened, it coincided with the new moon, so it wasn't visible because the moon was covered. The light of the moon was covered. Now, a supermoon is when a full moon coincides with the orbit of the moon coming the closest to Earth. Because, as you know, the orbit of the moon does not go in a perfect circle. It is slightly elongated, so more like a rugby ball or an American football around the Earth. And when it's at its closest point near to Earth, coinciding with the full moon, and at a distance of about 222,000 miles, which sounds very far, but at that closest point, coinciding with a full moon, we will see the moon at about 16 times brighter and about 7% larger. So please do yourself a favor. If it is a clear sky tomorrow evening, have a look at the moon, get your binoculars out, take some photos, because it is going to be absolutely stunning. And especially around sunset, with the moon rising at that particular time, it is giving us the illusion of the moon being even larger. So something to think about for tomorrow as this lion rolls over and continues his slumber in a very relaxed pose. Gust asking the question, what time of the day are lions most active? The answer to that, Gust, is no time of the day. Generally, they are not active during the day at all. As you can see, they can sleep 18 to 20 hours a day. So, in effect, lions are very lazy animals, or they can be perceived as such. When they are active, they are either marking their territory, drinking water, or hunting, or mating. So it's all life functions that they are fulfilling when they are awake and active, and the rest of the time is spent like this, where not even moving a leg is of enough energy. They are completely flat out. That is amazing to see. But we see this quite regularly, and hence the reason we do hang around at that time when we think they're going to start becoming active. But it all depends on how hot it's been during the day, when last they fed, when last they drank, if there's any females in the area that they might want to mate with. This all depends or affects their activity. And it is very energy efficient, I believe, to be in a position as such. He is not expending energy except for breathing in and out, which looks totally comfortable in my mind. When I sleep, I like to sleep like a cat. Josh, age 11, asking the question, how much would male lions like this weigh? Well, Josh, you're looking at about 220 kilograms. So it is a very heavy animal. It might not look as much, but they are extremely heavy. If you think 220 kilograms, if we double that, you're talking close on 500 pounds. Josh, it is very heavy. Okay? So, and the females, they'll be more around 120 kilograms, so more or less 250 pounds. So almost half the weight of the males. Now the females are built for stealth and for hunting. The males built for proudness and for fighting between males. But they are capable of being good hunters. And they can bring down massive prey such as buffalo, hippo, elephant and giraffe. Now, from one hunter to another, let's go over to Scott with Chitwa.